Well, hello, gals and guys. It's your host, Phil Larson, and this is your Motivational High Five on support. Let's do this. We're up to episode 61, and as we are moving forward with this podcast, I'm beginning to understand a little bit more about what it is. And we bring up these lessons, these words that each episode is titled, and really, what does it mean to our own life? It's a podcast that is calling all of us to become mindful to these different things, to tune in and find out how this relates to your own life. And one of the most important things that I've encountered in learning more about what I need to grow as a person, and something that I hope you get through this podcast, is the need for support. Because the truth is, we were not meant to live alone. Do you have a community of people who would support you? You know, I've mentioned before that some episodes pair nicely with other episodes. This one pairs nicely with episode 54 on loneliness. But so much of our episodes talk about healthy relationships. And if you think about some of the most important relationships in your life, one of the most damaging things you can do that can really kill a relationship is being unsupportive. Healthy relationships need mutual support of the good, healthy things in your life. So if you are pursuing something that you're really excited about and your spouse goes, good luck doing that, that is a relationship killer. That's something called contempt, and maybe an opposite of support, because contempt is putting yourself above someone else, whereas support, you really have to see each other as equals. I need you as much as you need me. And friends, you need support. You need emotional and mental support, maybe through counseling, or maybe some other self-development workshops, or recovery meetings, and those are often called support groups. What's been interesting is that coming out of this podcast, there's been a group of people who have found that in one another. Fellow listeners and me, we have created a sort of a support group, which can be found at internalmotivators.com, and it'll take you to our private Facebook group. And you also need spiritual support. Even if you don't find yourself to be a very spiritual, religious person, science is telling us that there are benefits to the brain of allowing yourself to have mystical experiences, allowing yourself to open up to spiritual awareness. The brain lights up and you tap into a certain part of your brain that you don't get in any other scenario other than belief in the spiritual. And if you're like most anyone else and are having a hard time opening yourself up to spiritual experiences, that may have a lot to do with baggage brought on by the poor actions of other people. So you need spiritual support. Maybe you get that from your church, and maybe you have just a select group of friends where that's where you go in conversation. And financial support. My wife and I had mentioned before, we had worked at a church before. And in order to work there, we had to raise our money to work there. We called it raising support. And whereas some churches get their pay through the offering in that particular church, well, we just got it in the offerings of people in the greater, larger church outside of our church. And what was cool and really humbling about that was not only did we just get financial support, but we got what we felt was emotional support. People rooting for us, people wanting us to do well. And so I want to ask you, are you supported? Where are you supported? Where do you have a need for support? And as I read through these definitions of support, become mindful and tune in to those questions. Am I supported? How so? Where do I need it? Here's some definitions of the word support. To endure bravely or quietly. To bear. To promote the interests or cause of. To assist or help. To advocate for. To pay the costs of. Or to maintain, like supporting a family. To provide a basis for the existence of. To hold up or serve as a foundation. I like this one. To keep from fainting, yielding, or losing courage. To provide comfort. To keep something going. Do you need support? Well, there are 2 essential steps to find it. First, we need to ask. Our own health and personal growth is up to us. So we need to check our pride here, and we need to be open to asking for it. Otherwise, we are not going to get it. Only when you allow yourself to be open and vulnerable are people able to see that there is a need and are able to offer. And yeah, that's hard to do, but maybe even the second step is even harder to finding that support. It is receiving it. People can give all the support they want, but it will do nothing to change you if you don't receive it. And those who offer support over and over again will become increasingly frustrated if you don't receive it, because their gift of support becomes cheapened by your refusal to receive and to apply to your life. They will less likely give to you in the future, and you'll find yourself lacking in support. And in order to receive it, we need to believe that we are worth receiving it. If you're new to this podcast, at the end of every episode, we end with an affirmation, a time to look at ourselves in the mirror and speak good, positive things to ourselves. We find that in the research of neuroscience, this helps rewire our brain. And so when you find a reflection of yourself in the mirror today or sometime soon, when you allow yourself to take the time to take this seriously, to take yourself seriously, will you do this? And will you say this? I can ask for and receive the support of others because I am worth it. And if you're a longtime listener, then you've already noticed that usually there's a different song playing during that time of our podcast. Well, being that we're tuning in to support and our need for support. And as you know, I don't run advertisements for the show. That being said, this is as close as you might come. Basically, I could use your support. And I have gotten a lot of emotional and moral support. You guys have been great. Thank you. I'm wondering if you will help with some financial support. To, as that last definition of support said, keep something going. And this is the way that I'm going to do it. I write music, and it's primarily background instrumental music. A lot of it's mostly inspirational stuff, and it goes well, then fits well with the podcast. What you're starting to hear is a song called Simple Beauty, and it is part of an album I have released in December 2016 on iTunes, Amazon, and other streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music. The album is called Inspire the World. If you would please support this podcast by going to iTunes or Amazon and purchasing the album. It's like less than $10. And that really goes a long way. If this has been any sort of benefit to you, if this podcast has offered what you would say over the last however many episodes, at least $10 worth of support to you in your own life and any benefit and change that you've seen, will you do this? I would so appreciate it. All you have to do is search my name, Phil Larson, in any one of those marketplaces, or the album name, Inspire the World, or just go to phillarson.net and you'll see a way to get there. Purchase the album, and when you do, send me an email at phil@thestoryshop.tv so I can thank you personally. And as an extra benefit, if you do purchase the album and email me at phil@thestoryshop.tv, I will send you a free song of a new one that I've written that I'm really excited about. And it will be on my next album, which I'm even more excited about. It'll be this kind of epic, dramatic, cinematic music. If you're into that kind of stuff, like Thomas Bergerson, Hans Zimmer, that kind of stuff, you're going to really like this next album. But if you would, please purchase that album and email me. I want to thank you personally, and then I want to send you a new song for free. And as this episode comes to an end, listen to the rest of this song. This is, again, called Simple Beauty, and it's on that album that's on iTunes or Amazon. The album called Inspire the World. I appreciate your support. It means the world to me to know and hear your stories about how this podcast has affected your life. And thank you for letting it affect you. No one else can do that. It starts with you.